Let's go. Today I'm talking about the 2018 film The Endless. As always, this review is going to be spoiler free, so if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe to this channel and like the video. So The Endless is another low-budget sci-fi horror drama from directorial team Benson and Aaron Moorhead. It follows two brothers, Justin, who is played by Justin, and Aaron, who is played by Aaron. I love that touch. After receiving a videotape from the UFO death cult where they were raised, they decide to go back for a short visit. And I fully admit that that is a deliberately inaccurate and vague plot summary, but I'm doing it for your own good. This movie goes to some really interesting and unexpected places, and one of the many joys is slowly figuring out what's going on throughout the course of the movie. And so I don't want to spoil that by giving too many details about the plot. But as the movie begins, we're set up with the two characters that we're going to follow throughout the course of this movie. And one of the interesting things that sets this movie apart is that it follows the relationship between two brothers, which is a rare thing for movies to follow. And as someone who grew up with 5 brothers, I really like that. Justin is the older brother, and he's the one who got the two of them out of the cult, and so he kind of feels responsible for his younger brother Aaron, who is restless and chafing under his brother's authority. I just love the dynamic between these two. Their dialogue is snappy and witty and funny, and they really feel like real brothers. However, I do have issues at some points with how the character arcs are handled here. I love what they're doing in concept, but in execution, I just think they go a little over the top with the characters. Some of the conflict between the brothers feels a little bit manufactured, and the writing is not subtle, to the point that there are some scenes in this movie where the characters are literally just vocalizing their character arcs. This is probably my biggest issue with the movie overall. After last week with Resolution, where I praised the character work, I actually think that this movie is a slight step backward in that regard. Still, I don't want to give the impression that the character work in this movie is bad. It's still ultimately satisfying and worth seeing in my opinion. I just wish that they would have done a little bit more showing and a little bit less telling. Once the brothers get to the camp where the cult is located, we start getting introduced to all the little characters, and each of them shines here. I'll say it again, this is one of the strengths of Justin and Aaron's work. They make each little character count, and I just love the way that the drama plays out between the two brothers and the little characters in this movie, and how each character is unique and memorable in their own way. But enough about the characters. This is a sci-fi horror movie, and thankfully it works on that level too. For starters, the mystery of this movie is really fascinating. These two brothers grew up in the cult and left not believing anything that they were told. But upon returning, they start to suspect that there may actually be a supernatural force at work in the area, and that the supposed death cult might actually be a little bit more than meets the eye. As the brothers investigate, I get more and more curious and more invested. And when the movie finally does answer my questions, the answers are every bit as fascinating and disturbing as I could have imagined. There are some moments in this movie that are genuinely scary. 2 moments in particular are going to haunt me, those being the lake scene, which is creepy as hell, and the man in the tent scene, which is just downright horrifying. This thing manages to be extremely creative and exciting and unsettling on an extremely low budget, which should be a slap in the face to so many Hollywood filmmakers these days. Now, this movie does use its low budget very well, but I'm not going to pretend like it never shows. I couldn't find exactly how much this movie was made for, but we do know that it wasn't very much. And it does show at some points. The acting isn't exactly top-notch, especially once we get to the man in the shed scene, but most of it works well enough for what this movie is doing. I also suspect that there are scenes missing from the middle of this movie due to budgetary restrictions. There are certain ambiguities and unanswered questions that I think at some point were explained, but either they had to get cut and they didn't have the money to go back and reshoot that stuff, or they ran out of money and didn't have a chance to shoot some of that stuff to begin with. Either way, it feels like there is some helpful material missing from the middle portion of the movie. But where the budget really shows is with the effects, especially near the end. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The effects in the climax of this movie are just awful. They are blatantly CGI, and while they do get the point of the story across, They kill the sense of danger that I should be feeling with the climax. Still, I don't resent the movie for it, and I admire these filmmakers for going as far as they did with what they had, even though they didn't have the money to make everything look perfect. So yeah, this is a successful movie in many ways. As a drama, it's satisfying. As a high-concept, mind-bending sci-fi mystery, it works. And as a horror movie, it's pretty unsettling. This is a really good movie, and it's a shame that it doesn't get the recognition it deserves from general audiences. I guess all I can do is recommend it and hope people check it out for themselves. In my opinion, it's a light 8 out of 10.